Hi, everybody. Welcome back. I'm Shane Willard, and I get the honor and privilege of being your greenhouse teacher this for this term. Thank you for choosing to take this course. I really am honored by it. Anytime I get to be a part of your life and impact your faith formation, I count that an honor. As long as Jesus is getting bigger, the cross is working better, the resurrection is being central, and scriptures are getting bigger, not smaller. I hope that's your experience. Anything I say that for you I love the way Jesus says this kind of stuff. He says, at the end of this profound teaching that is like earth changing, he goes, let him who has ears, let him hear. In other words, if you don't have the ability to hear this yet, maybe God's at work with you in some other way, and don't be in a hurry with that. God's not in a hurry with you, neither am I. And what I really believe is that if any of you grab just one mustard seed of each session and put it into practice, it'll fundamentally shift your life in a positive direction. The things I'm going to talk about today in particular, I built my whole life in business with. So this will change your business life, your financial life, your relational life. What we're going to talk about today is a fleshing out of an idea I introduced a couple of sessions ago. So we've come a long way, actually. This is session 4. We've talked about the proximity of God, the nature of that relationship. We've talked about the attributes of the spiritual man. We've talked about we've talked about the disposition of Messiah. We've talked about the wisdom tensions of the word anointing. We've talked about how to practice certain things. We've talked about trying to make the natural man spiritual or the spiritual man natural. Actually, it's just better to be than to try. We've talked a lot about a lot of those things, and I assume you can always, take the time and go back and re-listen to something. I mean, I think it's silliness to think that we'll get this in one go. I wrote this, and I'm not getting it in one go. Matter of fact, I wrote this a few months back, and because I wanted to be really over prepared. And as I was studying to do this, I realized, man, like there's some stuff I'm growing in, and if that's you, I don't want you to get discouraged, because the thing that'll discourage you is the thought that, oh man, if I can't put all this into practice right now, all or none, get in, all in or don't be in. If that's your thing, you could be very discouraged. What I would encourage you to do is pick a mustard seed, even an inconsequential thing that you're not doing, and apply it. And do it for 30 days. Do it for 90 days. Do it for some kind of specified period of time. Just see what happens to your life. Permanent life change doesn't tend to happen in big eventual moments. It happens in small mustard seed shifts. And so I want you to be encouraged by that. So last session we talked about the natural and spiritual man. This session I want to flesh out more the abilities of the spiritual man. That side, I keep using this side as life, this side is death. It's not anything other than something I could have done it either way. But that the spiritual man is the natural man's trying. I want to talk to you about the abilities of this side of the table here, the abilities of the spiritual man. This is Paul, and he's praying. And we talk a lot about the Lord's Prayer. What about Paul's prayer? Paul's praying in Ephesians chapter 1. Here's what he says: that the God of our Lord Jesus Christ, so here's his prayer. I want the God of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of glory, may give you the spirit of wisdom and of revelation in the knowledge of him, having the eyes of your heart enlightened, that you may know what is the hope to which he has called you. In other words, something could be true about you, but not yet true to you. What are the riches of his glorious inheritance in the saints? In other words, what's the culmination of this? And what is the immeasurable greatness of his power toward us who believe? According to the working of his great might, that he worked in Christ when he raised him from the dead and seated him at his right hand in the heavenly places. In other words, this same spirit that raised Christ from the dead has been gifted to you. And by the way, earlier, he talks about how that same spirit is what made creation. So the spirit power that looked at all the chaos before creation and said, I'll get involved in that and make a better narrative out of it, that's in you. Like, which leads to this question. It's not even, it's a question and it's an observation simultaneously. How have we underestimated that? Not have we, but how often and how much have we underestimated that? Like, where's the gap between what you're actually experiencing and the full potential of that? Like, what if Paul's telling the truth there? And I like the fact that he's phrasing it in the form of a prayer. I think Paul's assuming no one has realized the fullness of this. As a matter of fact, like one writer said it this way, no mind has ever conceived the wonderful things that God predestined before. Like, yeah, like to think, oh, I've arrived at the fullness of this is a mistake. To underestimate it, though, perpetually is also a mistake. To forget that there's this gap that we can shoot for. Now, a couple of thoughts about this. Practice is essential to every part of life. I am a humongous Steph Curry fan. I've followed him since he was in high school. He played high school in my area. Matter of fact, his high school basketball coach would not remember me at all, but he played against me in high school. He played for our crosstown rivals. And so they would come to my area once a year and play in a basketball tournament. So I've following him since he was in 10th grade. I love Steph Curry. If Steph Curry would have got drafted by the Minnesota Timberwolves, which, by the way, on a side unspiritual note, very natural note, the Minnesota Timberwolves passed on Steph Curry twice. They chose Ricky Rubio and Johnny Flynn instead of Steph Curry. Now, I know at least one Steph person at Kingdom City is a gigantic Timberwolves fan. And you can reach out to him and let him know something that he probably already knew. They could have had Steph Curry. And if he'd went to Minnesota, I'd be a Minnesota Timberwolves fan right with my friend there. And I got to meet Steph. And sometimes you meet a hero and it's not as good. Steph he took time with a family and a kid with some health issues. It was amazing. But one thing I could tell you, the practice Steph puts in before is infinitely more than you see him actually do in a game. So practice is essential to every part of life. I practice preaching and teaching. I would do more of this on my own than I do out in public. That way I appear smooth and sharp and my timing's good. It's because I practiced. You got to practice basketball. You got to practice soccer. You got to practice math. You got to practice, or in Australia, maths, which evidently, when I first started going to Australia, and they called maths, I thought that was weird, but it's actually, the Americans are the ones that were wrong about that. It's mathematics. So if you shorten it, it's maths. But you got to practice. You got to practice anything. But in the spirit realm's no different. We either practice or we get weak. Our habits aren't normal. And then we can slip right into the natural of trying instead of being. Sometimes it's just a matter of practice. So here's some things that activate our spirit man. And we talked about these 5 things in an earlier session, but I want to flesh them out here. Number 1, desire. Desire is something we often skip. Jesus said it this way: whatsoever things you desire, believe you'll receive them, and it'll be done. Simple question with no indictment. Have we skipped the desire part? People are like, I'm praying and nothing's happening. Okay, what do you want? Have you named your desire? Have you created a white hot heat for that desire? Or have you skipped the role of desire in praying? Like, have we just totally ignored that role in our prayers? And desire works kind of like a fire, like a forest fire, or let's just picture like a low-moving, slow-moving fire. It'll burn down like this. But if you If you take that same fire and you put it into an acetylene torch, you could cut through steel with the same thing that'll just do that. Now, forest fire, low and slow, isn't going to burn through steel. Steel will largely survive that. But you take that same thing and you hone it down into this white hot heat, it'll cut right through steel. Or if you know what you're doing, it can mold steel together. Here's the question. Can we hone the energy of our desire until it produces power? We're doing this anyway. Whatever you're experiencing in life right now is a direct result of a harnessed desire into the things you want the most. And some of you might be thinking, gee, my desires aren't very profound. Yeah, you're right. If you're taking 24-hour gift of God's breath and you're using 6 hours of 24 hours to watch 9-second videos of cats doing handstands, your desires need a little bit of work. The question really isn't, do we get what we want? The question is how profound or unprofound are our desires? And then how mature are our desires? And how harnessed are they? And how aware are we of them? The level of our desire determines what it will take to stop us. Jesus said in Mark, whatever you desire, pray. I think part of us, at least I did, like when Clark met me on the banks of the Ashley River that day and said, let's build your ministry in the Spirit. Go, hey, go for it, man. Go, pray. Come on. And if you don't know, a lot of you wouldn't know Clark. Clark was like really animated. He's kind of poking you in the stomach. Come on, from here. Here we go. Come on. And man, I just started barking about all the things I thought God would want to do. And Clark just said, where's your desire, man? Where's that want to? Like, we're in a Kingdom City context and you are in Greenhouse. Do you actually pray for Kingdom City? And if you do pray for Kingdom City, have you built a desire to see Kingdom City thrive? Or are you just barking at God about all the things you think you should be saying about Kingdom City? Like, have we skipped the desire? And can we clothe ourselves with the atmosphere necessary to process and possess what we desire? Can we do that? Like, can we build that white hot heat? Like a lot of people, they tell me what they want, but they haven't desired the necessary thing in themselves. For instance, if you're believing God for a spouse and you have this imagination of this spouse that you could believe God for, right? And she's a 10, but you're a 3. Well, hang on a second. Like, I'm just waiting to find the one. Well, you don't need to find the one. That's just dumb. You need to become the one you're looking for is looking for. That's two different things. Like, I'm believing God for a peaceful partner, but I'm a volatile person. How does that work? It can't work. And so, desire in a Kingdom City context. What's your gift? What area are you serving in? Like, the Kingdom City is uniquely set up in the sense that it has a place where you can be equipped called Greenhouse, and it has a place where you could be activated called Carriers. And honestly, you should be doing both. Like, otherwise you're just sitting around getting fat, right? So it's like, wait a minute, am I equipping myself by saying yes to Greenhouse? And if you're taking this course, you've said yes to that. But what about, where can I actually care about Kingdom City? The way you care about Kingdom City, the way you care about anything is to get involved in it, to be vested in it emotionally. Where do we desire it? Like, okay, I've prayed for Kingdom City. Okay, but do you desire its forward mobility? Do you desire its growth? Do you desire where it's going? Have you built a desire for your part in it? Desire activates that spirit part of us. The second thing is our imagination. And again, there's a resistance to the word imagination. And look, if you resist the word imagination, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. Pick another word. Just be functional with it. Like my dreams, the dream I have in my heart, what I'd love to see happen, whatever. I like the word imagination. The resistance to the word imagination comes from the idea that, the New Age people, it's the New Age. New Age people didn't give you your imagination. God did. And anything God gave us can be used to bring life or death. Choose life. Like Christians tend to overreact to things that have been perverted. Like, well, somebody perverted the use of food. It's called gluttony, but we're going to stop eating. Somebody perverted. Somebody perverted the use of sex. It's called lust and objectification. But we're not gonna just cut sex out of our lives. That would be a mistake. Like the idea that if anything can be perverted, we'll just ignore it. But in some sense, all good things can be perverted. Heck, even the word God in English has pagan origins. It's from the German deity Gott, G-O-T-T. And so when the English language was being developed, they were like, what's our word for deity going to be? Well, theirs is Gott. Let's call ours God. Like this is just because something could be perverted doesn't mean we should run from it. I mean, God gave us imagination, and we use it every day to bring life or death. Imagination is not pagan. It can be perverted, of course it can, but that doesn't mean it's bad in its essence. The Bible itself is full of imagination. Here's one, Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd. That's not literal, that's an imagination. Imagine God out there herding sheep. In this imaginative song, the songwriter said, it's like God's guiding me through to the rivers. Like the Lord is my shepherd, I shall lack nothing. He leads me beside quiet water. He leads me in paths of righteousness. Psalm 97, the Lord sits above the cloud with smoke in his nostrils. Obviously an imagination. God's not a man sitting above a cloud with smoke coming out of his nostril. But in this primary imagination, it's God is living and breathing and active and not far away from the broken story. And with energy, he cares about the matters of this world. That's a really good imagination. So here's a question we should ask, like it activates our spirit, man. One, do we have a desire for it? But two, let's say we have a desire to see people healed. I was talking with one of the Kingdom City leaders years ago now, and they were telling me their story about they went through a season in their life where they just desperately wanted to see people healed. And that desire started to create an imagination, and that imagination started to create opportunity for them to just be naturally ministering to the sick. Like when you read something about Jesus praying for someone, like when he prayed for the leper, or he delivered the demoniac, or the lady with the issue of blood, or the lady with the little kid after the lady with the issue of blood. When all this happened, can we just ask a simple question? What did Jesus feel when he did that? And then can we train our imagination to feel his feelings? Jesus obviously spent enough time in the presence of God to build that atmosphere around him. And what would that have been like? And what if I can touch 1% of that, or 2%, or 5%? Paul said that he learned to cast down imaginations. How important. Like, again, I don't know if he was stating a fact or if he was praying. Like, if he was stating a fact, that meant that he learned to cast down every imagination that exalts itself against the knowledge of Christ. That's unbelievable. What's also unbelievable, and I mean unbelievable, like not like I don't believe it, like that would be unbelievably awesome. Just waking up every day intending to cast down imaginations that exalt itself against the knowledge of Christ. That would just make our life so much better. Because this is old rabbinical teaching. A fleeting imagination will not hurt you nor help you. But wherever we can discipline our imagination, so if we discipline our imagination on this line, and our reality is here, wherever we discipline our imagination, our reality starts inching toward it. And whatever the gap is between what we're actually experiencing and what we're believing for, that's called faith. Because faith is the substance of things we hope for, but we have not seen as yet. And so the key is disciplining our picture. It activates our spirit, man, and our reality start drawing to it. And obviously, this is sad, but irresponsible for me not to say, this is true positively and negatively. Like if you discipline your imagination, if your reality's here and you're disciplining your imagination around lust, eventually it starts drawing to lustful situations. If you're disciplining your imagination around depression or anger, your reality will draw to that disciplined imagination. So how do you activate your spirit, man? Well, you do so with desire. You do so with imagination. And once I started to realize that building a desire inside and building a disciplined imagination on the inside, that was just as much prayer as me. Actually, that was more prayer than me barking at God about everything he should be doing. Man, that was like one of the more freeing days of my life from a couple situations. One, I understood prayer better. Two, now when I went to prayer meetings, I wasn't bored to tears. It was dynamic and active. And if prayer is all about the words we're praying, once we run out of words, oy, yay. The third thing that activates our spirit man is meditation. The scriptures say this: as a man thinks in his heart, so he becomes. Here's some other words. If you don't like the word meditation: musing, pondering, meditating on the things and possibilities of God to build deep down inside of our spirit person. It moves it from here to here. This has been proven scientifically, by the way. October 3rd, 1993, University of California at Los Angeles released the first peer-reviewed study about the role of repetitive felt thoughts in cognitive and neurological formation and pathways. What they did is they took a PET scan of people who were struggling with obsessive compulsive disorder. They took a PET scan of them and put them in a 12-week controlled environment, no tablets or anything. All they had was repetitive thoughts. And what they showed was that 12 weeks of meditative thoughts actually changed the caudate nucleus of the brain. In other words, as a person thinks deep down inside in his heart, so he becomes. It's spiritually true, but it's also very naturally true. Like you can literally change the neuronal fibers of your brain with meditative thoughts. Now there's a whole discipline now of neuro-linguistic programming, Dr. Carolyn Leaf, people like that came out of this. But this started in the scriptures. There's a psalm that says, "My heart grew hot within me, and as I meditated, the fire burned hotter, and then I spoke with my mouth." What a great formula for prayer, by the way. My heart grew hot within me. What do you want? As I meditated, the fire burned hotter. What are you imagining? What's the primary imaginative narrative? Where are you creating space? Where are you thinking about that until you can feel the emotions of it? That's what builds Kingdom City. So when people say Kingdom City is built with prayer, 100 million %. What does that mean? It means there's a group of fully devoted followers of Jesus who have chosen to harness their desires around the things God has for this place and their role in it. They picture a picture of it. They have a primary imaginative narrative around it. They meditate on those things until they can feel the feelings of it. You can build your business that way. You can build your life that way. It activates the spirit, man. The question that I'd be asking if I were you, because I did ask it on the banks of the Ashley River, is, well, how do I get started? Here's a great thing Clark Taylor taught me. Don't ask questions that have an end game. Ask what if questions. So if you ask your brain, what does it feel like to feel God? Your brain might say, I don't know. But if you say, what would it feel like if I could feel? What would it feel like? What would the possibilities be if I could feel? It'll activate the imagination part of your brain, and then that'll take precedent over the actual reality. You can build the person God says you are on the inside. I think Jesus did this. I hallowed your name in secret, now manifested in public. What if the desire and imagination combined to form meditations of white hot heat? And by the way, we're 3 activations in, and you don't have to use words for any of that. Like I often thought, how did Jesus pray for an hour, but his prayers were 40 seconds long? What was he doing? Well, I think if you look at his tradition and you look at some of his words around it, I think he spent time building desire on the inside. He's alone with God. I'm guessing here, but what if Jesus was asking what if questions? Father, what if I could see what you see? What if I could want what you want? Like one place he said, I only do what I see the Father doing. Where did he see it? How did he see it? What mechanisms was he using to see it? Is it like what if his alone time with God was building desire, going through his day, building a disciplined imagination around what that would look like, what he was building? I mean, how much bravery did Jesus have to build into himself to endure the cross? Like that's and how much faith do you have that God will be faithful to raise you from the dead? I mean, that is Massive. Where does that come from? Does it come from barking commands at God? I don't think so. It comes from building space deep down inside. Meditation. What if desire and imagination combined to form meditations of white hot heat? So where do you start? Here's a good place to start. Number one, get a word from God. Can't get one? Start with a scripture. Like pick something that's just obviously in the heart of God for you. Two, build a desire to feel it, do it, experience it, whatever that scripture is. And then think about it over and over and over again until you can see it happen on the inside. That you can see this thing happen. Like take a scripture like you're fully forgiven by the faithfulness of Christ, something like that. Well, what would it be like if you could feel that? Build a desire to feel it. Build a desire for others to know it. You could see it happening on your side. You could start to see yourself as innocent instead of trying not to act guilty. You could actually just live out of who you actually are. The fourth activation is visualization. This is where we completely see it worked out. Okay, so I tell you, it was amazing. Last year, I was in the new Kingdom City Hub in KO. But only the offices were done. The main thing wasn't done. The main thing was still a bunch of rubble. A lot of it was outside space, actually. And I took a tour of the place, and I said to Joel was one of the people on the architectural team. And I said, it's amazing. Like, this is amazing. What's more amazing are the people who could see it before it was here. That is amazing. Is somebody, likely a team of people, stood out in a bunch of rubble, saw something that was possible, and then asked, if we did it this way, how would I feel? How would I think? How would I talk? How would I walk? How would people get up here? How would they treat? How would I treat people? How would I serve people? What would I do? Dr. Mike Murdock says it this way: visualize what you want to materialize. There are certain things that cause our vision to blur, though. It only serves to get our eyes off of the goal. Things like gossip. Well, it's true, so what? Engaging in things where you're not the problem, nor you the solution, blurs your vision. Our life is built in desire, imagination, meditation, and visualization of biblical, scriptural, and Christ-like truth. That's where it's built. Not in gossip, not in negative words. Yeah, but that doesn't matter. It's getting our vision blurred. Criticism, listening to the naysayers more than we are the God. So these are things that activate our spirit man: desire, imagination, meditation, visualization. And by the way, none of that requires words. Here's something I want you to try. For the next 10 days, I want you to pray 3 minutes a day. But you're only allowed to speak for the last 15 seconds. Something very doable. The first 2 minutes and 45 seconds, I want you asking this question: Lord, what do you desire for me today? And give me the grace to feel that desire, to build that desire. Build a picture in your imagination of what that could look like. Build a meditation until you can feel the feelings of it. Start to see it looked out. And then in the last 15 seconds, I want you to speak out of your mouth the thing that was just birthed. Just start to speak it. My heart grew hot within me, and as I meditated, the fire burned hotter, and then I spoke with my mouth. Why don't you give that a go and see what could happen? Now, here's some principles. Number one, this is never, ever best used to serve self. Jesus in his prayer in John 17 said, Father, as you are in me and I'm in you, let them be in us so that the world might believe. Somehow the actions got to stay out there. Number two, if we learn the easy way, we'll avoid the wilderness. If we don't learn the easy way, we'll get the wilderness of our own making. The good news of it is that even when we're in the wilderness of our own making, God is still there. He's faithful to be present with us, even if it's the chaos of our own making. Because our lack of faithfulness doesn't compromise God's faithfulness. It's the whole point of the book of Romans. Number five, pay attention to the inner witness to keep from false starting. Sometimes you'll get a good vision and a good desire, but then there's still a timing issue, which we're going to talk about in the next session. Pay attention to how our actions are impacting the people we love. If we're engaging in activity that's good, but it's too fast or it's hurting the people we love, maybe we should slow down a bit. So I bless you to be people who utilize all the attributes of your spirit man: desire, imagination, meditation, visualization. And let's start calling that what it is: prayer. Grace and peace, everybody.